So we're recording the conference call, and I just turned that on, so that's good to go. So if you want to talk, please mute your phones. *2 will mute your phone, and *2 will unmute your phone. But if you're not actively talking, please mute your phone so we don't hear the background noise. And if you have a question, you can also ask that on the webinar, and I will monitor the questions, or you can just get our attention on the line. So, if you do have a comment, please state your name and then who you're representing. And we encourage all public comments we can get. So I think that's it, Pat.
All right, thank you. Bruce, you were going to tell us who's on the webinar?
Yes, I have right now. 1 second. Alex Burkholter. I have Amber Parrish, Andrew Shanini, Greg Gould, Janine Moss, John Wagner, Larry Phillips, Liz Mogstad, Mina Chu, Patrick Zhang, Kenny Cope, Rachel Moisne, Shyla Patera, and I heard Jeanette McKee on the line. Is there anyone else that I did not mention?
Bruce, this is Tom Mantrek. I'm on the phone.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We'll now introduce the folks sitting around the conference table here in room 226. I'm Pat Milby, board chair from Helena.
Eric Schindler, board member from Helena.
Vicki Bauer, homeownership program manager with Montana Housing.
Mary Bear, multifamily program manager at Montana Housing.
Paula Loving, office manager, Montana Housing.
Ginger Fancook, accounting manager, Montana Housing.
Cheryl Cohen, operations manager, Montana Housing.
And Penny Cope, outreach and business development, Montana Board of Housing.
Thank you, everyone. Is there anyone, as Bruce already asked, but somebody may have got on since, is there anybody else on the webinar that hasn't been introduced? Thank you. Is there any public comment on any public matter that's not on our agenda but within our jurisdiction? Hearing none, we can go on to the minutes of the June 17th, 2019 meeting. Have folks had a chance to look at those? If you have, Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
Eric Schindler, I move.
Okay, Eric,
this is Jeanette. Jeanette will second.
Thank you, Jeanette. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any, I'll ask again, is there any comments or discussion regarding the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes of the June 17 meeting signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. We can move on to the finance program.
This is Ginger Fancook. The information that you have in your packet or online does show that we haven't had a great deal of change since the last board meeting. The biggest change that you'll see is our money market continues to grow simply because there just has not been any investments available that would beat the money market rate at this time because of the volatility of the market. A lot of our funds are now available or will soon be available. The other item that I would mention is that next month we are finishing up our closure for June month, so you should have your balance sheet on the next board packet that you receive so that you have that balance sheet information for your review. And that's really all I had. If anybody has any questions, I'd certainly entertain.
Thank you, Ginger. Does any board member have a question for Ginger or any discussion regarding the finance program report? Is there any public comment or questions of Ginger regarding that report? Hearing none. Thank you, Ginger. We can move on to homeownership.
Good morning. In homeownership, we closed the 2019 B bond issuance on July 30th, and we have been accepting reservations against those reserved funds since June. The first item in the board packet today is approval of the bond resolution for the 2019 C issuance. The attached resolution approves the issuance of fixed or variable rate mortgage revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $75,000 to finance loans or refund bonds previously issued for such purposes or both. The resolution is written to give us flexibility to issue bonds under any of the three indentures and refund bonds from any of the three indentures. The resolution is the same as the one approved for the 2019 B issue in that this resolution allows floating rate note as a variable rate option and includes the authority to enter into standby purchase or liquidity agreements and a remarketing agreement in case it's needed. In addition to that language, it includes the authority to enter into continuing covenant agreement with the purchaser, which is a document typically required by a purchasing bank when floating rate notes are privately placed. On July 31st, as of July 31st, we had just over $18 million left to reserve in the 2019 B issue. Our current lending rates are 3.5% with no DPA, 3.75 with DPA, and our set-aside rate is currently at 3.25. Those rates were adjusted downward on August 2nd. The resolution will allow us to move forward with a new bond issue in this fall once we reserve up the 2019 issue. Staff requests the board approve the attached resolution.
Just one correction to your comment. It's 75 million, not 75,000.
Thank you. We wouldn't get very far out of that at all.
That could make a difference. Okay, board, you have before you 2019 Series C's bond resolution number 190807 SF02. Do you have any questions of Vicki or any discussion regarding the proposed bond resolution? Hearing nothing from the board, is there any public comment regarding this proposed bond issue or any questions of Vicki?
And John, do you have any comments with regard to the difference in this resolution versus the past resolution?
No, this is John Wagner. No, as Vicki said, this is basically the same resolution. It is a little bit, has a few more words about the potential for using floating rate bonds, but I understand we're not going to be doing that. And Greg, thank you for correcting the dollar amount.
I think that was Eric, but.
So Eric, I'm sorry. I thought it was Greg.
Yeah.
And that
was Eric. Yeah.
I retract that.
Eric's a number guy. He saw that immediately. Okay. If there's no other board discussion or questions or public comment or questions, the chair would entertain a motion regarding resolution number 190807 SF02.
Hey, Pat, this is Bruce. Johnny is on the call.
The resolution, pardon?
Johnny did get on the call. I just want you to let them know that.
Okay. I say the resolution says S02, not SF02. Will need to be corrected.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion from Jeanette to approve. Yes.
Eric seconds?
Eric seconds.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 190807 SF02. Is there any further board discussion before we vote? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the resolution signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, can you give us a program update for home ownership?
Sure. Included also in your board packet is the homeownership dashboard dated July 31st. The top section shows the reservations that we received through the month of July in loans in the regular programs, our DPA programs, as well as our set-aside programs. The changes in portfolio are listed there as well. You'll see the recent rate decreases that we've seen in the market has affected the board's portfolio from month to month. Our production has declined slightly, which is why we decreased our rate on August 2nd. And you can see in the June changes, as those rates remain low, we continue to receive payoffs on our loans. And so there's a slight decrease in our portfolio from the end of May to the end of June. Our delinquency rates and foreclosure rates continue to be low as our servicing operation and the servicing of Stockman Bank and Valley Bank of Ronan continue to be strong. There's a breakdown of the loans purchased from the lenders. We have 23 lenders we've purchased loans from this year. The breakdown of the portfolio between the mortgage insurers is listed, and through the month of July, Julie spent time training lenders and participating in homebuyer education class to get the word out about the board's program. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, board members, anybody have any questions of Vicki or any comments regarding the program update?
Hey, Vicki, this is Johnny McCluskey. On that 80-20, where we see zeros for the month of July, are we seeing a decline in use of that program overall?
You know, we really have. I believe NeighborWorks too. They haven't had a lot of those. They have the 20% participating mortgage that pairs nicely with that 80%, and they haven't seen that 20% going out either.
Is there any thought as to why?
No. I really don't have an answer for it. It's a good product because, of course, it takes away the need for FHA, which is a very expensive insurance option. So I'm not sure why it's not being utilized.
I wonder if maybe we need to, is it maybe an opportunity to market that product a little differently? I mean, do we know if a lot of people know about it? I know, like in Great Falls with NeighborWorks, they had some push there, but I'm just thinking in other markets where maybe there's opportunity to utilize that program.
Possibly. With our 80%, it has to be paired with a nonprofit. So it generally gets driven from their marketing efforts.
Okay.
We don't, currently the way the program's structured, it's not available for just any borrower who has 20% to come in and utilize that 80% program. Just because it starts to affect, our ratings and the way that our portfolio is viewed when we have a lot of non-insured loans. So we want to be real careful about how much we have out there that's not insured.
Okay.
Even at 80%, especially in this market, that it's, the price is so high. If there is a decline, we did, just a little history, we did have what we called a deep equity program that we ran back in 2006, 2007, where we did allow a borrower to come in with 20% of their own money. It had to be their own money. And that program was pretty well accepted. The problem was when the market, when we had such huge market decline in 2008 after everything crashed, that 80% became more like 100%, and we still had losses on those loans.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Johnny. Any other questions or comments from the board? Is there any comment or questions, Vicki, from members of the public regarding the program update? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can move on to mortgaging servicing program. And I guess we have a report in the packet. And I don't see Mary here, so we can just move on to, well, I should say is we have the report, the update in your packet. Is there any questions of the board or discussions regarding the mortgage servicing program? Are there any comments or questions from members of the public regarding the mortgage servicing program? All right, thanks. We can move on to multifamily.
We're playing musical chairs.
Craig, you should be
morning,
able to accept. There you go.
Oh,
Got it.
Rick's gonna drive.
All right, we're going to start with the review of the 2021 qualified allocation plan. And I guess Greg's going to drive that discussion. So Greg, you got the floor.
He's gonna drive the computer.
He's going to drive the computer. Mary has the floor.
And
Yes.
he can interrupt at will. Okay, first thing, I just handed you guys a page that we're proposing. We're going to be working on this language a little further, but we're proposing that we call it the current qualified allocation plan. There's been some confusion between the qualified allocation plans that are out there, and so we thought maybe it might be better to just call it the current one, and then have an approved date under there, and then a little bit of verbiage about what this QAP applies to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I noticed there was some discussion in some draft discussion in the QAP relative to what QAP is applicable to what things like.
Right.
Maybe something right on the front page with.
Yeah, and I was thinking about
good,
actually
yeah.
moving that definition right to this page along with the others.
Or at least a brief summary of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then I'm going to just hit the things that are really substantial changes. If you have anything in between, let me know. On page 2, this is where we were talking about the applicable QAP and those changes. And basically, it changed it into lists instead of just verbiage in a paragraph, that particular part. On page 3, the available annual credit allocation. This changes to eliminate the confusion for applicants regarding the maximum credit request. We're changing it just to what last year's allocation was from the federal government instead of where we were at a certain time, what the credits were available, because there's been some confusion there. And we've had some applications that came in for more than they actually could have gotten, and we had to have them adjust them down.
All right.
Just makes it clear, everybody knows where they're at for sure. The next thing is on page 10. And most of you guys will remember that we had some discussion about this about a year ago at the training. I think we were in Polson. So we're on under Section 3, Montana-specific requirements, the eligible applicants. So the first housing credit project must be completed, and that's just cleanup language. And we're talking about related parties and identity of interest there, addressing the capacity to better fit to address the capacity issues. Replaces the criterion for completion 100% of occupancy and compliance with a different indicator of completion issuance of 8609. The existing criteria could result in different timing depending on the type of project. And then number 2, wanting to add a provision intended to limit the number of competitive projects that a developer or other team member may have at any given time to assure that capacity is not exceeded and to spread the available 9% credits among different developers. So an applicant is not able to submit a letter of intent or full application of 9% credits if an award of credits for the applicant project would cause the applicant's cumulative credit amount to exceed the cumulative credit maximum. That maximum is $15 million in total credits for the 10-year period, not including credits awarded for tax-exempt bond developments. The cumulative credit maximum applies in addition to the maximum credit award provisions in Section 6. And I believe those are the maximum amounts they can apply for.
Mary, this is Johnny.
Yes.
So in that, that second one there, so is your staff, do you guys go through and as you get those letters of intent, you guys are going through and deciphering whether or not that developer or builder has exceeded that dollar amount, and then you guys will then vet them out before they get to us?
Yes, that's correct. We'll probably be, actually hopefully be ahead of the game and notifying the ones that are not eligible at that point to send in a letter of intent. Saves everybody a little work.
And then I have another, so what is an 8609?
The 8609 is the final allocation of credits. It's the form that we have to send into the IRS that allows them to actually claim those credits.
Okay.
They have to send us the paperwork to be able to do those. We can't do those without a CPA's, not a certification, but CPA has to review that stuff and send us the numbers.
Okay.
Okay.
I have one more question for you, Mary. In that part 2 there, was that, it says that that's a new provision. Is that something that the developers themselves felt like there was too many projects from one developer in each round, or where did that come from?
It was submitted by a group of developers, and we talked about this in great depth at the QAP discussion session, and it's been massaged since it actually went in there originally. They felt that the $15 million was better than a certain number of awards. And then there is,
So this language actually comes from the developers, working with the developers.
Correct. Okay. It does, yeah. And just so on C, you'll notice that the share of the 10-year amount of the credits is awarded to any in-process project is 100% unless the applicant or co-developer or co-owner consultant for the in-process project in such event, the applicant's share is the same percentage as the project's 10-year credit amount as percentage of the developer fee. So it's the same way we look at the maximum that they're allowed to be awarded in a single project and around.
Okay.
Mary?
Your question answered, Johnny?
Yeah, I just was curious as to where that came from, being as it says it's a new provision.
Yeah, certainly.
Pat, this is Greg. I just wanted to make a comment or two. This language did start from language that was proposed from the development community, and of course we looked at it and we made some revisions to make it more workable, we think, for this situation for Montana. One thing I also wanted to point out is that an important piece of this is this concept identity of interest. And you'll note that we have a definition already of a related party, and that definition of related party is really used for purposes of looking at the reasonableness of various fees. So we're in that situation, we're looking at situations where you could have someone who's related, and therefore, you could have somebody potentially, padding or charging more money or charging little less money than something's worth. And this is really a different concept identity of interest. We're looking more at trying to identify the members of the development team and parties who are really affected by this idea of capacity, who may be sort of over capacity and unable to potentially finish a project on time. So we do have a definition of identity of interest I want to point out that goes along with this provision. And I've put that up on the screen.
I saw that in the definition. Thanks, Greg. Any other questions on this provision? Okay, we can move on to the next change of substance.
Which is just a little further down the page there under other disqualifying conditions. This came to me kind of as a recommendation from Mark Shelburne, who has been in the tax credit business for longer than Bruce and I, and is an attorney that worked for North Carolina for several years, now works for Novogradac, that basically the project that's in the application is the project that hits the ground, including, so it must be the same project as described and represented in the application from the time of application through the first 5 years of the compliance period, except for any changes that are not substantial changes or any substantial changes that have been approved by MBOH or the MBOH board as provided in the applicable QAP. This includes ownership, development team members, the physical property, and any project characteristics proposed or promised in the application. For example, targeting amenities, green energy, etc.
Okay, any questions on that provision? Okay.
And then we've added on page 12 at the bottom, cost per unit limit exceptions. Exception requests the exception request must be submitted to MBOH staff before submission of letter of intent. Exceptions will only be considered for preservation of existing affordable housing and based upon documented justification. For example, negotiated sales price or unusual needs identified in a capital needs assessment. MBOH staff will evaluate and present exception requests to the MBOH board. Exceptions may be granted by MBOH board in its sole discretion. And this would allow a narrow exception to the total project limit, but must be approved by the board. And it's not the total project cost limit, the cost per unit.
Okay. Any questions from the board or the public regarding this proposed change? Okay, thanks.
On the bottom of 13, this is cleanup language, but it used to say that MBOH staff will decide how and by what amount the soft costs will be reduced. And we're not in a position to do that. So if they don't communicate to us when they're supposed to, adjusting those soft costs, the application will be returned unscored and the fees will not be refunded because they get an opportunity to make that correction.
Okay. Any comments or questions from members of the board or members of the public regarding this proposed change? Okay, Mary.
On number 15, this is something we just added recently.
Page 15, you say?
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah. Page 15, number 5, maximum rents. We started looking into this because we started getting phone calls from tenants and advocates about large rental increases. At one property, they were proposing to raise the rents $237 a month, and that was on a senior property. And communicating with other states around the country, this is happening a lot, other places. And other states are already doing this. or are in the process of doing it. So we're proposing that the rents must be limited to the levels specified in the application and declaration of restrictive covenants. In addition, if rent increases are permitted from time to time as a result of increase of area median income, such increases shall not exceed 5% in any calendar year. And this is the highest number that I saw out there when I was communicating with everybody on the listserv at NCSHA. And the applications and all the underwriting that we do is done with only a 2 or 3% annual increase on the income. So that's what they've told us they would do. There'll be large increases. Shouldn't be happening.
Okay. Any comments or questions from members of the board or members of the public on this proposed change? Thanks, Mary.
And then we're at page 18. Under H, substantial rehabilitation. We're increasing the minimum standard dollar amounts are being increased as these amounts have not been adjusted for a number of years. This adjustment will require more significant rehabilitation. So for 4% projects, we're going to from 15,000 to 25,000. On 9%, from 25,000 to 30,000. This was also part of the discussion at the QAP session.
Okay. Any comments or questions from members of the board or members of the public regarding this proposed change?
Page 20, this is clarification language, and it was the intent all along that it says any one of the following. There's been some confusion about that, and then we are taking out E because it really is everywhere in the state.
Okay. Any comments or questions from members of the board or members of the public regarding this change? Okay, we can move on.
On the next page, page 21, we moved the application submission a little bit later. This year it landed over the top of the submission of the compliance being submitted for 25% of the projects, and it overwhelmed the system. So this is to avoid that happening again. And then under C, the second award, we're adding the language for if you decide to go to a second round. Anyone or a combination of the following, limited to those applicants that submitted a letter of intent in the first round, but not invited to submit a full application. We kind of overlooked that when we put that language in here before, that maybe you might want to open it up just to that group if you're going to a second round rather than opening it up to a full open round.
Okay.
So it just gives you another option.
All right. Are there any comments or questions from members of the board or members of the public regarding these proposed changes? All right. Thank you.
Okay, page 25. The first part there is just to change what we referred to in that annual allocation amount, what that credit amount is being calculated on, the maximum credit amount, because we changed that definition. And then down below, so MBOH does not commit tax credits for future years except as specifically provided in this QAP. The MBOH board may award housing credits from a future year's federally allocated ceiling. Number one, during the current year full application cycle as the board determines necessary in an amount up to 10% of the credits requested to fully fund a project for which the current year credits are available to fund 90% of the credit requested.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from members of the board or members of the public regarding the changes proposed on page 25? Thank you.
Okay, and then on page 30,
Just a second, what's the difference between a mini and a full market study? I noticed a slight change in that.
a mini market study is one, first of all, that the market analysts can do with the information that they have accessible on the internet and the resources that they have. And it refers to need in the area. I don't have the list in front of me. Anyway, it's about 2 or 3 pages long. It just hits on the highlights of what we need to figure out if there's really any need there.
Okay.
The full market study, they have to go to the site and they have to submit all kinds of documentation for how they got their numbers and stuff, and they're between 500 and 1,000 pages.
Okay, thank you. Now we're on page 30.
Okay. So this is under the threshold, and the legislature, because of some problems that came up with some properties coming in for tax exemption, there's a special part in the code that allows properties that were doing 50% of their units at least 50% or more. They were doing at least 50% or more of their units at 50% or less targeted income. And they were cleaning up some language. Otherwise, and it really was just cleanup. And so when the legislature fixed that part, they took out the IRS requirements at the recommendation of Maureen Rood and some other people who worked on this code initially, because it was IRS requirements. The minimum set-asides, which are the 20% of the units have to be at 50% or less, or 40% of the units have to be at 60% or less. When they did that, they pulled out the 50% of the units have to be at a 50% targeting. And we're concerned, and developers too, we talked about this at the QAP too. There's concern that if we let that go away, they're going to come back and go, wait a minute. And
but you mean the Department of Revenue? Department of
Revenue and the legislature, and just take the whole thing away. So we would rather see them, we would rather protect it and keep that 50% of the units have to be at 50% of median income. Long story short, we want to leave that part in there, so we want to require it in the QAP. Because I think if they go back, we think if they go back and realize what they did, that there could be a problem.
Okay. So this basically is to comply with state law for nonprofit.
For what the tax law was before they unintentionally changed it, I think.
All right. Are there any comments or questions from members of the board or members of the public regarding the change on page 30? Okay, Mary, move on.
Okay, on page 31, we've added that they need to include executed developer fee agreement and consultant fee agreements. That's part of, we've kind of wanted to get those anyway, but it's part of having documentation for the limitation on the credits that they can have and also on the maximum award. And then we have taken out the letters of community support will no longer be required. That was discussion at the QAP session brought up by Bob, and I would really like to thank Bob for coming to the QAP session. It was very, very helpful to have him there and productive, and the developers were really appreciated that he was there. So.
Well, yeah, thank you, Bob, for attending. I know you're not on the phone, but we'll get that on the record anyway. Are there any comments or questions from members of the board or members of the public regarding the changes on page 31? Okay.
And then page 35, scoring for income averaging. So we have two different ones for 9% and 4%. So I'm going to go through the 9% one and then just tell you the difference on the 4. So under the income averaging, it will be a requirement, and we may have to change this language, Greg, that 3% of the units or a minimum of 1 unit, whichever is higher, must be targeted at 20% or 30% if 10% of the units are targeted at 70% or above. And then from target median under this, where it says income level down to where it says note 2, below where it says note 2 is basically the same as what is in the scoring for a non-income averaging project, except for the 40% would give them 10 points if they meet that, or 20 points. We're saying that if they target 20%, 5% or greater of the units at 20%, 5% of the units at or greater at 30%, 5% of the units or greater at 40%. For that category, 20 points will be awarded if at least 2 of the 3 targeted percentages above, the 20, 30, or 40, are met. No points will be awarded if less than 2 of the 3 are met. And then the difference between the 4 and the 9 is that they only have to do the 40%. They don't have to go down.
Okay. And this language on income averaging was worked out between the staff and developers?
We proposed language to them, and what we proposed they didn't like at all, so we had to come back and start over.
Okay, so you worked with them in coming up with this language? The reason I'm saying this is because I don't have a clue.
Right.
So
I don't know.
I'm hoping that by the time we consider applications, I will understand this. So,
and we'll get
right
some. We'll make sure that we get some input from them. I don't remember. I think we had some of them on the phone and we talked about it.
Okay.
Is there any questions?
No. Are there any comments or questions from members of the board or members of the public regarding the income averaging language? And especially from members of the public, if you have any comments. Developers? I'm sure we'll probably get some responses back when this goes out for review and
I hope so,
comment.
anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, we can move on then. Thank you.
And I think that's it.
Okay. Mary says that's it. We'll give her one little last chance here to leaf through and see if there's anything else.
Greg or Bruce, was there anything else that you thought we should be?
I don't think so. I think the rest of it is kind of moving language around, just clarification stuff. So.
Okay.
I did miss one thing.
One thing. Okay.
Okay. On page 44, under the additional selection factors that you have, we have added reserving project rental assistance or are planning to add Section 811 units on an existing project. Up in our rental assistance area, what we have referred to in the past as our Section 8 housing assistance, they've been having a little difficulty getting 811 units leased up, and Cheryl is a part of a group, I'm not going to be able to say what it's called.
The Medicaid Innovation Accelerator Program.
Yeah, that are encouraging us to put something in here. So this was the best place to put this at this point, that you guys can consider that when you're doing
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments or questions from members of the board or members of the public regarding this proposed change? All right, is that it then?
for QAP.
Okay, do you need
Pat,
a,
Pat, this is Alex.
yes, who is this?
Alex Burkhalter.
Hi, Alex, yes.
Hey, throughout the review of the QAP that Mary's done, you've asked for comment, and I appreciate that. It sounds like the development community is going to have a chance to look at what you've seen here and maybe provide more comment back. I would say that we had a great session at Fairmont, and the staff really seems to have taken hold of a lot of the comments we gave and tried to work them into the QAP here. So I think while some of the developers on the phone might have been quiet through this, we're probably just processing what they've done now. But I tell you, it looks like they've taken a lot of what we said and tried to implement it in a way that's going to work. So I'm encouraged by that, and I think you will get some more comment back from the developers.
Thank you, Alex. And that was going to be my next question is I guess I need to, Bruce and Mary, do you need any action from the board on this, or is this, okay, no. So, but I would like to know if there are any more comments or questions from members of the board regarding the entire plan. And thank you, Alex, for your comment. Are there any other comments from members of the public or questions regarding the draft QAP?
Yes, Pat, this is Tom Mantrack. Wanted to make sure that the board and those either on the webinar or on the phone know that the development community was very and is very appreciative of the work that Bruce and Mary did with revenue and with the legislature to kind of clean up this property tax exemption. It really, its genesis is something that Montana has really been in the forefront on, and that is twinning the 4% and 9% credits together. You know, without getting deeply in the weeds, that execution really works maybe at all, but certainly better if you stack your higher AMI units in the bond side of the deal. And doing that, we were having troubles with that 50% number. So good result, but good laborers in the field by Bruce and Mary to help get this through.
Thank you, Tom. I'm sure those comments are appreciated. All right.
So
go ahead, Mary.
we will go ahead and put the QAP out for public comment. And I'm not exactly sure, and there will be a public comment for about 3 weeks probably, and then we'll have a public hearing near the end of that, and then the comments that we get and stuff will come to the board meeting in September, and we'll bring this to the board for approval at that time, as soon as we get it out. So we'll be working with Penny on that.
Thank you. Sure appreciate the comments from the developers. Alex and Tom, are there any other public comments or questions regarding the draft QAP plan? All right, Mary, you can proceed with sending that out, and we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the Red Alder Helena Bond Resolution number 190807 MF01.
So Red Alder was previously approved as a 9% deal, and this is now the 4% part of that project. So it is a bond resolution in the amount of $5 million, and this is to approve the funding loan agreement, borrower loan. You have that language in front of you. That is in Helena here, if you don't remember, it's being done by Rocky Mountain Development.
Okay, sure board members, you're familiar with this application, the approval last year. Are there any discussion or questions from members of the board regarding this proposed resolution?
Mary, this is Johnny.
Johnny.
Hi.
Hey, is this project, is it going pretty smooth? Is it on schedule?
they work through their, up to their closing. So this is part of the pre-work process before they close with the investor, before they're able to do the bond deal. They have to come for the resolution. They're hoping to close this, both the 9% and 4% in September, and would then be moving forward to start construction fairly soon, I would imagine. So I think they're pretty close to being on schedule.
And Liz Mogstad is on the phone. I was going to ask her to provide comments on this. Liz, do you have any comments?
Hey, it's Liz. Yeah, we are still on schedule to break ground in mid-September. So can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay. Sorry. When you unmuted, it mutes you guys for a minute. So, yeah, so we are on schedule, and this is just part of our closing process. And both sides are ready to go. As long as I think our closing's set for right around September 15th, or give or take a few days. And then we should be starting construction very shortly after that.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other board questions of Mary or Liz regarding this proposed resolution? Are there any public comments or questions regarding the proposal? Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to approve this resolution 190807 MF01.
This is Johnny. I move.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Jeanette will second.
Thank you, Jeanette. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions from members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Now we can move on to the Importa. Is that
Importa, yeah. It's a 4% only project. This is an acquisition rehab of an original tax credit project done in 2001 and 2002, named Courtyard 1 and 2 in Corvallis. And just for clarification, Tom, thank you for catching this. On paragraph, the second whereas paragraph, that last, right after 36 units, it says new construction, and the actual documents have been changed to acquisition rehabilitation.
Okay. Tom, would you like to make any comments regarding the proposed resolution?
Thank you very much, Pat. Tom Mantrack, Thomas Development. This is one of those projects that doesn't come along very often, and what I mean by that is it is financially feasible using only 4% tax credit and tax-exempt bonds. We need not request home or CDBG or HTF or any other soft lending source. It works that way for a couple of reasons, one of which is the property tax exemption, which we discussed previously in the QAP section. The rent structure of this property allows us to take advantage of that provision in the Montana Code, so it allows bulking up the permanent debt a little more than you would if you had to pay property taxes. The second is we are purchasing from Caleb Group, the Pacific Companies, a name that's well known in the industry, not quite such a big presence in Montana, but a really, really good guy. And our purchase price, and Mary, I'll get you some updates on this. The appraisal is about $160,000 higher than the purchase price. The purchase price will not float up by virtue of that differential, but we will slightly modify the purchase agreement to make the nonprofit, Northwest Integrity Housing Co., the sole purchaser, which allows the seller to get a tax write-off for the difference between appraisal and purchase. We're spending about $44,000 a door, hard costs and builder's fees, et cetera. The property is in good shape, but as we often find properties that are of this vintage, the Federal Fair Housing and ADA compliance in this case is awfully good, but it's not up to current standards. And we're finding, even when we don't have federal money in a deal, that the investors are requesting full 504 compliance. There's some safety issues. The property is located immediately adjacent to a creek that's about 8 feet wide and runs all year. First time Barbara and I were on site, we said our grandchildren would be in the water here in a minute. So we're putting a big fence up to make the property a little more safe, probably re-roof, pretty major upgrade and improvements energy-wise, both inside and outside of the property, increase the safety lighting, those sorts of things. So it's a good development. Market Edge Construction will be our contractor. Glacier is probably going to be the construction lender, and the equity partner there are two possibilities. So had an excellent meeting on site with the residents, and they're very happy to see this development move forward. They love living where they live. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Tom. Are there any questions of Mary or Tom regarding this proposed resolution? Any further discussion from the board? Is there any public comment or questions regarding the Importa Carvalis bond resolution? Okay, hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 19-0807 MF02 with the change in the second whereas paragraph, the second to last line, by deleting new construction and inserting acquisition rehabilitation.
So moved, Jeanette.
Okay, do we have a second? This is Eric. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion from the board? Any further public comment? Hear my echo in. Hearing no further discussion, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Tom. I love to see these rehabs done with 4%.
Yeah, it's really, Chairman Pat, that's really, other states are really looking at utilizing basically limiting the 9% credit to new construction and the 4% credit for AC rehab. A couple of states, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico, have actually created subsidiary home-like funds to provide the gap financing only for rehab on bond deals. So something we may want to visit about next year.
Yeah. Thank you again. Okay.
All right.
Mary.
Thank you all.
So we will move to get the TEFRA hearings done and an application for the bond cap. And we'll get those documents signed. Okay.
You have a program update.
I do. So Janine Moss, a name that should be very familiar to most of you, retired from home ownership a while back. She has been working as a temp for a while. She is now working half-time for the multifamily. She's helping us out with the extra load created by the new IRS increase in the percentage of the units that have to be inspected and the other additional workload that we have on that side of things. Things continue to be in a turmoil.
Hello. Go ahead, Mary.
Things continue to be in a turmoil at Blackfeet Housing. They let the last director go and now have an interim again. I think this is the third or fourth one since Chancey left in late 18. Inspections were done in mid-May, and we still have not had any response from them. We're probably going to be reaching out to the syndicator, see if we can get any results. And Freedom's Path is progressing slowly. House Bill 16 ARM hearing is August 15th here. We usually don't have a whole lot of participation in those, and we are working on the processes for that.
That's the
15 million.
The 15 million from the
From the
full
whole
tax
trust.
trust. Okay.
Yep. And I think that's it.
All right. Thank you. Is there any questions of Mary regarding the program update from the board or from members of the public? Hearing none, we're going to move on to operations program, and Cheryl is going to present that. Thank you.
Morning, this is Cheryl Cohen, Operations Manager. So our next board meeting will be held Tuesday, September 10th in Lewistown. And as previously mentioned, the board will be presented with the final qualified allocation plan for approval. The day before, September 9th in Lewistown, we'll be holding a board member and staff strategic planning session. So I've been sending periodic emails to the board to solicit feedback. So thank you for board members for responding to those so we can have that be a productive section. There's also an out-of-state board member training opportunity for the NCSHA annual conference in October in Boston. We have Pat, Erica, and Amber confirmed. Is that correct? And I'm looking across the table at Paula, see if that's...
That is not correct. I am not attending.
Okay.
Jeanette's going to go there.
All right, so Pat, Jeanette, and Amber, is that correct? Okay, we'll make sure that we monitor that way. Staffing update, a few breaking things since this was put together and posted on the web. We did hire a loss mitigation program specialist yesterday. Her name is Jackie Haskins, and she's been working for us as a temp already and has proven herself to be very efficient and taking initiative, and so we're great to have her on our team. Operations is hiring for administrative assistants. We had one staff member move on to other things, and so that position was actually just posted on the 5th. And I think we're going to be posting for 2 weeks, and then we'll be looking at applications. Operations is also jointly working with our Commerce Community Development Division to hire a part-time records retention specialist. Applications have already been submitted and vetting is underway, and we're meeting August 7th to review those applications and make decisions on who to contact for interviews. John Schreck, who's been the tenant-based Section 8 project manager, requested and reserved proof for a temporary part-time assignment within the operations team effective August 3rd. So he's going to work on special projects and report to me until his scheduled retirement in March of 2020. And finally, not listed on the dashboard update, but one of our accounting staff members, Annette, retired on August 2nd, and her position was posted on August 1st. So we'll be looking at that as well. Any questions on staffing updates or ads that I may have missed? All right, a couple quick updates on procurement. We executed a Clifton Strength Finders Program Sustainability Services contract with Elkins Consulting, with Sarah Elkins, last month. Our team had already been utilizing Sarah's services to provide Clifton Strength Finder assessments of individual staff, programs to help us evaluate how we can best work together, identify what strengths staff members have, and really utilize those strengths to their full capacity. So this sustainability contract will allow us to continue that work, including doing those assessments with new employees as they're hired, program managers and the employee meeting with Sarah. We can also do retreats with Selma within each programmatic team or as a division as a whole to continue our organization's focus on the strengths of our employees and how we can best use those for team building and leadership development. And I've just got a note across the table from Vicki around a contract update for fiscal year 20 for Homebuyer Ed. And I think that's with NeighborWorks Montana. So we'll be working on updating that contract as well. So I'll be coordinating with Vicki on that contract update. Finally, we're striving to draft a request for information for third-party quality control services to be released hopefully by the end of the third quarter. We're still chugging away on our GSE seller servicer approval plan. So this is Fannie Freddie work. Our team updated a 3-month work plan on July 19th. Main categories for deliverables include completing and testing a newly drafted GSE compliant mortgage submission voucher, updating our pre-purchase and post-closing quality control plans and QC tests, completing participating lender recertification reviews, develop an updated GSE compliant lender application and agreement, update and create a variety of policies and procedures, including fraud and anti-money laundering. The procurement that I mentioned above, including third quality control vendors and technology solutions for improved work efficiencies, and developing a GSE-specific staff training program. We completed our first operational call with Freddie Mac on July 25th, and we have recurring monthly meetings scheduled now for August, September, and October. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions from the board.
Any members of the board have any questions of Cheryl regarding the operations program update or discussion? Is there any public comment or questions of Cheryl regarding the operations program update? Thank you, Cheryl. Bruce, Executive Director Program.
So I really don't have a lot to add. I think we've got most of it in the operations section. So up on the screen is the calendar for the remainder of 19. We will be getting to you probably in September, for sure in September, our proposed meeting dates for 2020, which isn't so far away at this point. So with that, that's all I have.
All right. Board members, are there any questions of Bruce regarding the Executive Director Program? Any discussion? Any public comment or question regarding the Executive Director Program? Hearing none, we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce, you're going to be there for